Of course.
All right, we're going to start in just a minute, but I'm just going to remind you, you've heard it before, you're in a webcasting room, so there'll be recording, and if you have a question or at the time during questions, we'll go ahead and pass out the mic. That way Beth doesn't have to repeat your question. So I'll let her direct when she wants questions, but just to remind you about that. So we're going to start recording in just a second. We'll get it. All right. Well, I'm not going to make a lengthy introduction. We are very pleased to have Beth Kanter here with us. Many of you follow her online, follow her tweet, and have read some of her materials. So she's going to be talking about networking and what it takes to be successful and using the data. Measurement, Sarah's favorite thing. So thank you, Beth. We appreciate it and welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. A colleague of mine said that I was on the Iron Woman conference trek. So I think this is my 7th or 8th conference in a row this month. And I actually high-fived Dave Grave in the airport. When he was coming here, I was flying out to San Antonio. So I'm glad to actually have landed here. So that's a little bit about me. And I just want to tell you that I was really lucky. 20 years ago, I had a front row seat to the creation of a field, how nonprofits could use the internet for mission-driven work. And I got into it not knowing anything about technology. In fact, I admit it, I don't know a modem from a microwave, okay? But I think I know how to learn it from technical people, and I think I can teach it to other people. So I've made a career of kind of public learning, and then turning around and teaching it to people who work for social good organizations or charities, literally around the world. I have the blog, the 2 books, and I just describe myself as just a really curious person. So in that light, okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood the audience. So some of my stories may not totally match your context. You may need to do a little translation. That's interesting. It's not if or when a technical problem will happen, it's how you deal with it. Oh, that one was easy. Okay, so what is your burning question about being connected, using networks, social media, or social media measurement? Because those are the topics. Oh, and you'll note that there is a little iPad mini 0. Okay, paper, remember this? Remember this stuff? And I think you have your own pens. And there's 2 here, and the reason that there's 2 is that if you actually stay to the end, I'm going to do a raffle for a couple of my books. So I'm into bribes. I have 2 teenagers. I bribe. Okay, so just take one of your iPad mini 0s, okay, and just think for a moment, you came to this room, you must have a question, you must be curious about something related to the topic, you read the description, write that down for a moment. And I don't know if we have live people listening to this live, they can write it down, or they can stand up in their office and shout it, and they can show us a picture of their coworker's expression and tweet it. Okay, and you can raise your hand when you're done writing. Okay. Okay. Question? Did we forget how to write?
Anybody have a hand up?
A, B. There was a question? Okay. Do you want me to read them?
Okay, we have a couple of questions from there. My burning question is, what is your favorite free SM social media measurement tool?
Okay, and we're going to talk about that. Great. Phew. Okay. Oh, one thing in my presentation relates to one of your questions. I'm already feeling good. Okay. All right. So what I was going to do is have you do a share pair. And everyone familiar with share pairs? Okay. So the way I like to do a share pair is that you turn to your buddy and you share your burning question. But the deal is, when you see me raise my hand, you have to raise your hand and stop talking, because I forgot to pack my Chinese gong. Okay? So I'm going to trust you now. So just turn to a neighbor and share your burning question. And in fact, if you can answer it for them, answer it. Hey,
How are you?
oh my God,
It's been a few years.
And I have this email from you from
Oh, yeah.
months ago, and I'm like, so we can answer it here. It's good to see you.
Glad you were
Okay.
here. That made me so excited when I saw your name. I retired, but
Oh.
I don't work here anymore.
But you have to, it's your people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy. Would you like? Oh, it's really.
Okay. All right. This is self-organizing without top-down control, okay? All right, so now we're gonna do something called popcorn and twinkle, okay? How many of you are elementary teachers, elementary school teachers? Okay, well, popcorn is, I want you to just pop out your questions, and I'm gonna sort of do this. If you're extroverted, you'll feel very comfortable shouting it out. And if you can hear the question, then, and it resonates with your question, then you twinkle, which is this, okay? So, popcorn. Shout out your questions. Oh, we're shy here. Oh, just pop one out. Your Bernie question.
Mine is, what unexpected trends are we seeing?
Okay, what unexpected trends are we seeing? Okay. Oh, we have some twinklers. Pop, pop.
How do you use social media management to learn how to better change behavior?
Ooh, okay. That's more than a 50-minute presentation. But, well, we'll address some of that. Okay. All right, I saw a lot of twinkling there. Pop. Pop. Okay, so how do you bribe your audience to audience? Oh, okay. So, ooh, internally. Okay. All right. All right. Pop. Pop over here. Okay. Could you repeat that?
Which parameters express the greatest impact? We are all interested in impact.
Okay. So are you saying what is the data that proves impact, or what is the
How can we
Okay. And things being like data points. Okay. All right. All right. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Whoa. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to move on in the interest of time because I don't have a lot of time. So I want to actually show you this video. I have it all queued up. I'm praying that it works. But you know how it goes. So it would help if I could use this computer. Okay.
I have a lot of followers. I have followers on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and YouTube, okay? But there's one piece missing from my social media empire. I'm talking about LinkedIn, okay? Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what LinkedIn is.
Yeah, I don't either.
I have no idea. I asked around. It has something to do with business,
Right.
I think, okay? But when I found out that I didn't have a presence on LinkedIn, I was outraged. I was freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to rule LinkedIn. I want to be the king of LinkedIn, even if I don't know what it all is about.
Right, you don't have to know in order to rule it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what I did is I created a LinkedIn profile, okay? There I am. I'm dressed to go clubbing in Germany. All ready to go. And then I noticed that other people on LinkedIn, other business leaders, they post pictures of themselves sometimes with a world leader to sort of up their ante, make themselves seem more important. For example, the founder of Craigslist, Craig Newmark, posted a profile photo of himself with President Obama. Okay? Big deal. Here's what I did. I put up something even better. This is a picture of me with former presidents Bill Clinton, George Bush, and Teddy Roosevelt. And check this out. We're all standing in the palm of Pope Francis. That's right. Yeah. So, True story, kids. So far, I've amassed over 75,000 followers, and I've now been deemed something, this is real, called a LinkedIn influencer. That's right. Just the other day, I passed GE Chairman Jeff Immelt. He was my old boss at NBC. So, no problem with him. Nice to pass him, though. So we're on our way to the top. But I deserve more followers, and I will have them. I will. Look at some of the people with more followers than I, okay? Check it out. This guy, David Evans, has almost 80,000 followers. He calls himself Cisco's chief futurist. I'm sorry, I thought my job was bullshit. What the hell? What's a futurist?
I don't know.
Do you know what a futurist is?
Yeah,
I'm a futurist.
No.
Do you know the future? No. Yeah, and when there's this woman, Beth Kanter, she has over 125,000 followers. That's right, she's wearing a hat she borrowed from Macho Man Randy Savage. And she has more followers than I do. It's absurd. Well, guess what? Me and the presidents can wear gaudy red hats too. There we are. Now we're talking. I want to climb to the top of the LinkedIn pile. So if you're near a computer or you can get to a computer, please join LinkedIn by going to teamcoco.com/LinkedIn and follow me. Okay, this will help feed.
Okay, so, and for the record, I had to Google Macho Man Randy whatever and his red hat. I had no idea who he was. And my mother has no idea what LinkedIn is, but she thought it was pretty funny. And I thought like winning the Terry McAdams Nonprofit Book Award would be the highlight of my career. But so I gave Conant some advice. You know, it's, you know, when we talk about measurement and impact for social media, it's not about popularity. It's not about the number of followers. It's not about the number of likes. You know, it's really about using your influence, building your networks, and encouraging your audience to either, you know, change their behavior or to take some action that relates to your mission. So he ignored me, and I still have more followers than he does on LinkedIn. So why is this possible that, you know, me, a person who works with nonprofits, can have more influence than a national talk show host? Well, it has to do with the trend of 3 digital revolutions. How many of you are familiar with the Pew and the American Life Internet statistics? Okay, so if you're not, it's the go-to place for online stats, mostly Americans, about how we're using the internet and social media and mobile. So we have these 3 digital revolutions going on. You know, we have something like 82% of the population has access to broadband. What's the other one? Mobile, it's 89% in the US, slightly lower for smartphones. And in some countries, you have over 100% penetration. In South Africa, I think it's 102%. Because, you know why? Because some people have 2 cell phones, you know, one for the wife and one for the mistress. And social networks. I think Facebook is now 72%. You know, these things have become like air, believe it or not. Charlene Lee said that 5 years ago, and I didn't believe her. No, that's not going to be possible. Well, the future's here. And it makes things like this possible. The cutest one-eyed cat pirate you've ever seen. Does anyone know about Sir Stuffington? Okay, so Sir Stuffington was found in an alley. His eye was scratched out by a raccoon. There was Lana, who loved animals and rescued him, brought him to the local animal rescue, and then set up a Facebook page to raise awareness about the need to raise money for animal welfare organizations, to adopt pets, and to go and volunteer. And apparently this page, within a few hours, got, you know, a lot of likes. It got attention from the Wall Street Journal, NPR, and all of a sudden a lot of donations started to pour into the animal rescue. It was in Oregon, Multnomah County. Anyone from Oregon? So I actually asked the executive director, well, how did you feel about this? You know, this is not it's not a staff person. It's not part of your, you know, branded communication. This is just, you know, a free agent who went and did this. and said, this is great because it's raised the awareness for our work because we have a super volunteer. And she doesn't necessarily fit the profile of our standard volunteer. She's a younger person. It's somebody who we didn't even know had a connection with and was able to really help, our cause. So, but change, at least in the nonprofit sector where I come from, happens really slowly. Yes, somebody's nodding. It's very slow. And so 20 years ago, I used to try to help organizations, and I would give them lots of things to do. Do this database, do this, do that, and they wouldn't do anything. So there's always been this sort of issue around adoption. So I was inspired by this Martin Luther King quote called, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl, but keep on moving forward. So I put together a maturity of practice model for network nonprofits, and it broke down different best practices, and it helped organizations figure out where they needed to improve to move forward, being networked. And there's no value statement here. I mean, how many of you have kids? Okay, now when your kids crawled, did you go, ugh? No, it was a milestone. It's developmentally appropriate. So crawling, your department or your organization may have a communication strategy that needs further development, needs to be more formalized. Maybe there's some culture change. Maybe some people are still not understanding why these social networks are important. Or maybe they're not working in an agile kind of way. Walking, they're starting to link social with results. And they're doing pilots. They're doing one campaign, integrating it into one program at a time, and learning from those pilots. There's incremental capacity, up to 20 staff hours per week, not just in one person, but this could be across the organization. And then you cross this chasm into running, and here's where you really need to invest in capacity and more staff time. In the nonprofit sector, we have a formal ladder of engagement. They have an understanding of how to bring the audience from passive observers to engaging with them to, in many cases, taking out their wallet and becoming donors or changing their behavior or then becoming champions for the organization and leveraging their networks on behalf of the organization. They have a robust content strategy. They are practicing best practices. A new tool comes along. What's this Instagram thing? Maybe we should try a small pilot and see if it works for us. And doing some measurement and learning in that, but it's not yet systematic. When you get up to the flying stage, they have many people like Lana, who found Sir Stuffington. They have many champions there who are out there serving their organization, or working with influencers. They have multi-channel engagement. It's not just social, it's through mobile, face-to-face, it's all coordinated, and there's a reflection and continuous improvement process built into the organization. So that's crawl, walk, run, fly. So what I'd like you to do is a little share pair and talk to your neighbor again, okay? And then when you see me raise my hand, I want you to raise your hand and stop talking. Where do you think your department or your organization is now? What do you think you need to do to move forward? Are you crawling? And I'll put this back so you have a reference. Talk. Okay. 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 So if I had you in a workshop for a longer amount of time, and I had the room set up in the way I like to set up classrooms, which is not like this. I teach at a graduate school, and I always demand the flexible classroom space. I would actually make you line up and do a spectrogram from crawling up to flying, and then interview you. So just a show of hands, how many are crawling? And there's no shame in that. Okay, let's give them a hand. That's great. So I'd say about a quarter of the room. Yay. Walkers? Okay. Okay, runners. Fewer runners. Okay, so we're getting like kind of a bell curve here. Flyers? No flyers? No one's teleporting or flying? Okay. Is there anyone kind of like running the Nike, running in their Nikes and doing, a race versus kind of power walking? No? Okay. Anyone sitting, just in the sitting stage? Yeah. Any of that not been born yet? Okay, that's okay. All right. So, I have this maturity practice model. I'll throw a link out to it. It's actually a rubric that describes each of these practices in these different stages, and then you can actually use this as an inventory to like take a more holistic approach to becoming a more networked department or organization, because you can't change all at once. It's better to go. My feeling is better to go incrementally. So I'm going to actually just pick, what I'm going to talk about are these three different areas: culture, capacity, and measurement, and try to answer your questions as we go. So this is the most difficult indicator because it's the least tangible. It's called the network mindset. Okay? So this is the one that I explain it and people say, huh? Okay, so it's really, it's a more participatory leadership. It's being open, it's being transparent, it's being more data informed, and less top-down and control and hierarchical. And it's really, and in terms of your communications, it's thinking more in a network model than a broadcast model. So let me give you some examples. In the nonprofit sector, and you'll have to like maybe translate this to your area. Maybe this would be the president of the university, or the president or the head of your department. But the social CEO, using social for leadership. So this is Udi Ofer, and he is the CEO of the ACLU of New Jersey, okay? And when he started there, his communications staff and program staff said, you should tweet, you should be on Twitter. And he's like, what? Why should I do that? And then they talked to him about, well, your job, a lot of your job is out there doing press conferences, talking to policymakers, talking to reporters, and Twitter can really help you do your job better. And so they sat him down and they gave him a tweetorial, and then he discovered that he could actually tweet on his smartphone while he was waiting in line for his lunch, and so it wasn't like it was found time. And then he got a quote in a New York Times article because he interacted with the reporter on Twitter, and he became a complete convert and had everybody on staff tweeting through their individual identities as well as the brand. So the social CEO. This is an example of Helen Clark from UNDP. The head of UNDP she actually does her own chats. She doesn't have she's not ghost chatting on Twitter. So this was in advance of Davos. So tweeting has gone from under the table with diplomats to on the Twitter wall to now out into the world where anyone could interact with her and ask her questions about the development goals. And which I thought was really pretty amazing because I got to ask her a question and she answered it. And then the staff actually took all the questions and answers and then created content from that. So I just thought it was a great example of using social media for leadership, being connected, talking about policy issues. This is Carolyn Miles, and she is the CEO of Save the Children. I just presented with her the other day, and they have their own, Save the Children has its own branded Twitter presence and social media, but she also tweets, because she's going on site around the world to see the work that's on the ground, whether it's in Syria, Egypt, wherever, and she will tweet pictures and talk about the work. You know, I'm going into the State House to talk about, you know, children's issues, but she'll also tweet a walk on the beach. So this is about being human, being authentic, and it's opening up for connections. So somebody, are you saying, why would the CEO ever want to tweet? It's okay if you're thinking that. Are you thinking that? No. Okay. All right. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I've gotten, I don't think the CEO should be on Twitter at all. I don't think it's a good use of the CEO's time. Anyone thinking that? Okay, so let's look at, okay, so this is a program called Twiangulate. All the Twitter tools start with TW, and it makes it really hard to pronounce. But, okay, so what this does is it looks at the reach of individual accounts, and it does a Venn diagram to see where there's overlap. So you can't see this, but the pink one is Carol Miles, okay, and the little green one is their organization. But how and why is that possible if Save the Children has, it doesn't have it up here, but Save the Children has something like 25 or 50 or 100,000 followers, and Carolyn only has 7. How can she have more reach? She has very influential people following her, that's why. So she has world leaders following her, as opposed to her organization. So that's the answer why. It's thinking about it in this networked way. And social media, at least with nonprofits, it's becoming, you know, part of everybody's job. It's not just the CEO. It's not just communications. It's all positions. You know, and some people are happy about it, and others are not so happy about it, okay? So how many of you are dealing with trying to get more people on your staff or in your department, you know, having a social presence? Okay, do you meet resistance? Okay, so how do you deal with that? Keep going, okay. You just keep going. What else? How else do you deal with that? Okay, so make it easy for them. Find the ones that are really into it and let them, you know, run with it, and the ones that are less into it, make it easy for them. Okay, how else? Okay. Okay, so they're not being forced, and having that conversation. Well, here's a story. You know, how do you take a staff person who might have some passion around your organization's mission? And in this case, this is Rachel Dearborn from Upwell, which does ocean conservation. And Rachel loves sharks. See, she has that shark backpack. And Upwell cares about all the fish in the ocean. You know, they do whale conservation, they do sustainable seafood, there's a whole lot of other ocean conservation issues. And Rachel does social media, but she could spend many hours looking at shark pictures and interacting with shark people. And so, but it's not, and it is part of her job, but not to spend all of her time on sharks, okay? So what happened was she had made this amazing connection with a wonderful set of champions who love sharks. There's a group of blogs on Tumblr. Everyone familiar with Tumblr? You know, the community that's yes, a topic. You know, I'm not going to say the word because they're taping it, but, and it could go on the internet and my kids could see it and I could get in trouble. But it's whatever. And I have one called Nonprofit Spreadsheets, where I blog about spreadsheets. Okay, this one is Sharks, okay? And it has millions of subscribers, young people who love sharks, okay? I mean, that's pretty awesome for an ocean conservation organization to connect with that. So the kids were graduating from college and they decided they didn't want to run this blog anymore and they wanted to donate it to Upwell. And so it caused this whole conversation about, do we have swear words in our web properties? So the executive director and Rachel discussed it, and they said, well, you know what, it would be a really great asset for us to leverage, but why don't they turn it over to you personally? And Rachel said, no, I'll buy it from them for a pepperoni pizza. So she gave them a pepperoni pizza. They gave Rachel FES Sharks with its millions of subscribers. And her executive director said, you can spend a couple hours a week as part of your social media job tending to the site. So it was a win-win for all of them. So it was like having that conversation and making it work and trying to find those people on staff who may have a passion that relates to whatever your program impact or goals are. Okay, so I am, in the interest of time, I would do another little share pair here and have you reflect on how social your organization is, but I'm going to, unless you want to do that, but I kind of want to get into some of the measurement stuff because you had some questions about that. Okay, everyone okay with that? Okay, I see some nodding. Okay, you with me? I taught in the Middle East. I had translation and Arabic and French, and so I had them, and there was this delay, so I kept on, and they had heard of Mission Impossible, and they all loved Tom Cruise. So I said, are you with me? And they would all raise their thumbs. And then they told me to stop doing it because they were understanding what I was saying. Okay, so the data-informed nonprofit is a big idea that, that while we were writing this book, that it's not data-driven organizations, because it could be the wrong data. And you could be making wrong decisions based on the wrong data, and that it's really taking your organizational wisdom, looking at the data, learning from it, and reaching your results. And that's the data-informed nonprofit. So this is the poster nonprofit for the data-informed nonprofit. It's DoSomething.org. Any of you familiar with them? Any of you work with young people, so you should know about Do Something. They launch online social change campaigns, and they want to get teens active in those. So does anyone know who that guy is up there at the top? Anyone know who he is? Yeah, Reid Hoffman, he's the CEO of LinkedIn. Does anyone know who that guy is? He's the data scientist from LinkedIn, and both of them were on Do Something's board. That's Nancy, who is the CEO. She's the chief old person on staff, because I think everyone else is like 20. And they said to her when she, 5 years ago, lose your gut. You cannot make decisions just based on gut. You need to use a scientific method. It needs to be based on the data. You need to be collecting data about the performance of your campaigns, and not to tell us that, wow, we got all this reach, but to see, what actually converts people to action. What can you learn from this data, and how can you improve the results of your campaign? So they didn't just talk about it, they actually then hired 2 data scientists on staff. That's Jeffrey and Bob. They're biology PhDs that then wanted to go into the nonprofit sector, and they know how to do regression analysis. And so they work on the staff, they have an open office, and they don't sit in the corner and play with their spreadsheets. They actually work with staff to help them understand the data and apply it. And one of the insights that I got from them, they have a mantra in their office that they spend more time thinking about the data than they do collecting it. It's something like a 70-30. So 70% thinking about it, 30% collecting it. They said, because it's really fun to collect data and make pretty charts and graphs from it, but what does it mean? It's really more important for us to really apply it. So here's a campaign that they launched. This is called, this was based on some research that they found that a lot of animals were being killed in kill shelters because there were not enough photos of the pets being distributed online. So they wanted to do a campaign where they would recruit teens to become fur-tographers. Okay, so they would download this app, go into a shelter, photograph a pet, a potential pet, a cat or a dog, and share it on social networks with their friends. They were also trying to get them to go into the shelters, donate, supplies, or volunteer their time. So they launched this app on the Today Show. I'm not going to show the video, but Kathy Lee drops with cute puppies, and Kathy Lee dropped one of them on its head. But there was no animals harmed on the Today Show, okay? But somebody took a video clip of it, and they did it in slow motion, and then they did it backwards, and then they put it up on YouTube, and it started getting around, and it got picked up by the Gawker blog. And what's really interesting is during a Today Show segment about a Do Something, and that's a hyperlink that clicks right over to the app, I happened to be in the office that day, and the two data scientists excused themselves and went into this room, and they were actually looking at the conversion rates, like who's actually going over to the page and downloading the app. And I just like I couldn't help myself. I had to go into the room and like listen to what they were talking about. I thought they're going to be talking all these statistics and stuff, but they were actually talking about, wow, we should change the, you know, the way we're describing this, or maybe with the next test we should try the link over here, or maybe, you know, they came up with a series of different hypotheses based on the data they were collecting that they were going to test the next step around for that first step in impact, which was downloading the app. And of course, it ended up being a successful campaign, but they had different metrics along the way to see where they were successful. You know, how many supplies were donated, how many animals were adopted, how many photos were shared, and doing experimentation for each one of these impact data points to improve what they were doing. Make sense? Eyes are glazing over, or like, wow, this is no, or are you saying no, this is not relevant to my, is this relevant or irrelevant? Relevant? Oh, you're, okay, relevant. So you might do maybe you're not dealing with pets, maybe you're dealing with other topics, but they had animal shelters as partners. So, yeah. So, and what they're doing here is that's their ladder of engagement, and they have a metric, the one metric that matters for each step of that ladder. And then they're able to then, you know, they tested, like, this dog is looking straight at you. They tested one poster where the dog was looking away and the dog was straight. Will that encourage more people to actually convert or not? Okay, so here's another example. This comes from Upwell. And so the way they approach their communications, they identify opportunities, they package content, they work with a whole network of ocean conservation partners to then starting conversations around whatever the topic is. They measure their impact, they improve, they share, they rinse and repeat. So let me give you a specific example. Okay, so isn't that, how many of you think that's really sexy? Come on a minute. When I talk to a room full of data people, they were like, oh my God, that chart is so incredible. And other people are like, eh. Okay, so you can't really see it, but the different colors represent keywords that relate to their ocean conservation issues, like ocean acidification, Gulf of Mexico, MPAs, overfishing, sustainable seafood. And the pink one is sharks. Okay, what do you notice? Spikes, okay. Wow, sharks, okay. Opportunity spotted. So what do you think? Why do you think there's a spike in the word shark? Yes, yes, Shark Week. Okay, so they went in, Shark Week, okay, wow, there's a lot of people tweeting about Shark Week. Well, that doesn't really tell them anything. What is the sentiment analysis around the tweets? You know, how does that break down? So we have shark terror, people who are scared of sharks, so there was a shark sighting, get out of the ocean! We have save the sharks, and those are their people. And then we have yay sharks, people like those kids that started FES Sharks that love sharks, but they're not yet necessarily educated about shark conservation. So they launched a campaign with all their shark conservation partners. They had a Sharkinar, and they packaged content into that hashtag around shark conservation. And they did a baseline of people tweeting about shark conservation. And then after the campaign, they wanted to know, did we raise the percentage of conversation about shark conservation on social networks? And yes, they did. So that's how they measured the metric that matters for them. Because what mattered for them is more people talking about shark conservation, not get out of the water if there's a shark, and not yay sharks. Okay, questions? Okay, in the interest of time, I could stop here and we could break into some Q&A because I'm looking at the time. Of course, I overestimated the amount of content that I could get through in 50 minutes. I always do that. Or I could continue on with a couple more stories. What would you like? How many would like more content? Raise your hand. Raise it high so we can see it. Oh, okay. So, and how many would like to break into Q&A? Okay. So, so you can tweet your questions, and I can pick those up or chat afterwards. Okay. So I'm going to tell a few more stories, and I think I can make it to 3:05. All right. Okay. So this is an evolving practice of using this social media data for policy research. How many have seen the work that the United Nations Global Pulse Lab is doing? So what they're doing is they are running an analysis of everybody around the world who's tweeting with the hashtag about the development goals, and then broken down by the 15 different topics. And it's actually really interesting. If you go there, you can see who in real time and what part of the world is talking about their policy issue. And then they're summarizing that data and feeding that back into policy research. Now this is it's in its embryonic stages, and there's still a whole lot of issues with the data itself. It's not representative of everybody, because not everybody around the world is using Twitter, obviously. And, but it's an evolving science. It's sort of the next phase of social media data. We call it ambient data used for policy research. And sort of now the next level here, and I've just presented on this a couple weeks ago, is being able to take, if you're just listening to the chatter that's happening on social networks through something like Radian6 or doing your listening, again, that doesn't give you the whole picture about your potential audience and what motivates them. And I was lucky enough to work with Vision Critical and do a study where I could ask questions about donations to a survey of like 30,000 people, and then append their actual social media usage. So we could get really granular about what are the behaviors or the perceptions or the triggers for people who just share on social media and don't use it that much versus, heavy users. So that's kind of that's the future of where social data is going. And again, I will share some, afterwards, can share some resources. So let me leave you with just a couple of practical things. You like practical stuff, right? Stuff that you could hopefully apply in the next week or so. I always try for that. I really, really always try for that, because that's the goal. So, and this sort of summarizes some of the things in the book. So, go beyond counting. We're trying to get, nonprofits are so addicted to, we have this reach, or we have this many likes on Facebook. And that's great if you can connect it to a larger goal, like behavior change or a financial donation goal. But likes of and of themselves are probably pretty meaningless. You're not going to throw stones at me for that comment? No. Okay, you all agree, right? Okay. Go beyond counting. Have measurement discipline. This is Katie Payne's 7 Steps of Measurement. She's the co-author of the book. And it actually works for any kind of measurement process. And the evaluators in the room this may resonate a bit. Goal, audience, what the cost is, having a benchmark, your key data point, picking your metrics tool to collect your data, and actually generating some insight to it, and that it's a kind of circular process. And the key here is to start small. A lot of nonprofits try to measure, they say, we got measurement, we're gonna do measurement. And they try to measure everything, and then they stop measuring everything because it's too exhausting. So just start with a small project or a pilot, one thing. And this is, and probably, again, maybe a basic point. I love this cartoon. There's cartoons in the book because I wanted the book, measurement can be a dry topic, but I wanted people to laugh and feel good about it, be happy. So our cat adoption numbers tanked this quarter, but the important thing is our YouTube views are way up. Okay, so what happened? And that's actually a step that a lot of nonprofits miss, is they don't get in the room. They don't talk specifically about what success is. We're too eager to jump into what's your favorite metrics tool, or what about this data point, and sort of back away from that conversation. So have that conversation about what does success look like. I call it, instead of KPIs, we call it the kicking butt indicator. Okay. So what is that data point? You said you wanted to know what your impact data is. What's going to say that your president or your department head or you are going to say, wow, we kicked it, you know? And that's what you choose. Some organizations, and this is Edutopia, you will actually have a whole process where they design their dashboard on the wall, and this is, you know, they're looking for metrics around reach, engagement, action, and evangelizing. And those sticky dots, you know, what's most important to the staff to help them improve what they're doing, and then what's most important to senior managers and the board. You know, what are the metrics that matter of all the things that you could collect? And then there's consensus and buy-in from the team. So there isn't this fat, bloated spreadsheet with a lot of data that no one looks at. You probably don't have this problem. I probably should have taken this slide out, but in the nonprofit sector, we have a lot of people who are allergic to data manipulation and a feeling like we don't know how to do this. We flunked math in 8th grade and we're allergic to Excel, so we need help. There's an evolving group of organizations that have data scientists who have a social conscience and they want to volunteer for organizations. So, but I think that there needs to be a basic level of data literacy in all organizations. And that's the stuff that isn't so sexy, like cleaning your data, sorting it, visualizing it, applying it, not just making pretty pictures with it. Somebody asked about the tools. I think that was one of the first questions. And the quick point about the tools is that it depends. It depends. It depends on your goals and the type of data that you need, and then that will drive the choice of your tools. So for social media, you're going to be looking at either doing a content analysis, like looking at what people are saying, survey research, if you're looking at attitudes or preferences, and then analytics programs, if you're looking at traffic, engagement, or action. And those are just a couple examples of primarily free tools and one really expensive tool, Radian 6. So it's picking the right tool. Really think through. I've seen a lot of organizations waste a lot of money by saying, oh, we're going to get the new fancy tool. Oh, but wait, it doesn't collect the data we need. So it really helps to think that through. And maybe that's a really basic thing I just said, but I always have to say it. Okay, so does anyone know who that is? Oh, I'm so glad, because I was presenting this and it was a group of younger people and they said, oh, is that John Wayne? Okay, so does anyone know the line, the famous line? Okay, can you say that loud? Oh, you must be an Aussie. Okay. Can you say it again? I just love hearing it. A person. Say it really loud.
That's not a knife. This is
Okay. All right. So that's not a spreadsheet. That's a spreadsheet. Okay. So think about the structure of your spreadsheet. This comes from Global Giving. And it's not just data, they've actually looking at it against what they actually did to get those results. And so I asked the marketing director, her name's Allie Carlson, I said, my God, what's the tool that you got that actually created that spreadsheet and customized and it matches your logo colors? She goes, oh, I did it. And I said, and how do you get the data in there? Well, I have to cut and paste it. Oh, doesn't that take you hours? Is that that's really boring. Well, it takes me an hour or two. I said, well, was it worth it? Hell yes. She said, by having it there and seeing it all together and then having this as a discussion piece on staff really works. And finally, I'm going to end with a few points about learning from your data, okay? Okay, have you all heard of organizational amnesia? Okay, do you suffer from organizational amnesia? Do you know what it is? It's when we measure things or we do things, but we don't document them or capture them, and then we're zombies repeating the mistakes of the past, like this poor fellow. And dog shaming is a great site. Okay, so this comes from, it's the reflection improvement process once you have the data. Moms Rising does this thing called joyful funerals. They actually give permission not to do something, and they give it a funeral. And while they're reflecting and giving the technique or whatever that didn't work, there's no shame involved, and then there's a reflection process, and they get ideas on how to improve. And they also have, they do metrics Mondays. Every 10 minutes of their staff meeting, they look at their data and they talk about how to apply it. And these are just a couple of other examples, though I'll talk a little bit about Do Something does a Fail Fest, starting with the CEO and a Fail Fest. She wears a pink boa and talks about a campaign that absolutely flopped. And why, and by having the leadership come and talk about that, it sort of opens the way, no shame, and it opens the way for improvement. So that's the summary, and you have your index card there. If you could just take a moment and jot down what's one thing you can put into practice next week about improving being networked or measurement, and put it on the 3x5 card or the 5x8 card with your name. I will raffle off 5 books, and while we're doing that, I can also